So much, Dr. Swati. Okay, so as we all know, we have gathered here today to commemorate the legacy of late Professor Chitta Mitra, who is also known as the father of Indian pharma brand management, and whose contribution will always be remembered and celebrated. To begin with, allow me to introduce our very first speaker for the day, Mr. Aneesh Mitra. Mr. Aneesh is the Vice President of Strategy at SMSRC and Group Companies, Medclin and MedSign. Mr. Anish is responsible for strategy and operations related to the group's endeavor to become a globally leading clinical intelligence company with existing and newer services. Anish has around 10 years of experience now across SMSRC and Group, Abbott, and Credit Suisse. He is an economics graduate, a postgraduate in financial economics, and is currently pursuing an MBA from ISB. Besides clinical intelligence, he loves playing the piano and exploring nature and is a passionate sports fan. Thank you, Mr. Anish, for joining us here today. Over to you.
Thank you, Gauri, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you, Dr. Swati and Vivek sir and the entire Pharma State Academy for inviting me. Let me just share my screen. So thank you, Pharma State Academy, for inviting me, and warm welcome to everyone. Happy New Year. Happy Makar Sankranti to everyone joining us from India and Bangladesh. Hope you're doing well and wishing you good health for the new year. Having said that, I'd like to start my short speech or discussion on how prescription data can be leveraged for a patient-centric approach in pharma marketing by pharma marketeers. And keeping this in mind, I think I'd like to start my discussion today. Before I start anything, I think the reason why we are having this Global Pharma Brand Managers Day is to celebrate and pay our respects to Professor Chitta Mitra on this day, on 3rd of January, when he left Earth. And he's also known as the father of pharma brand management, as nicely done by Pharma State Academy over the last 2 to 3 years. And even more, I think this occasion is a grand celebration of all the work that he has done throughout his life to celebrate how ethical marketing should be done in the right manner using prescription data. And being an advocate and pioneer of the same, I think what Pharma State Academy is doing is wonderful. So before I start, I'd like to give a little brief, I think, for the attendees who have joined us today. So Professor Chitta Mitra is the founder of prescription-based market research in the world, along with his friend, legendary Dr. Tarun Gupta, who was the head of marketing at Glaxo in India, now known as GSK. Everyone, I think, in pharma industry in India and Bangladesh, and even in the world, probably just know both of them by name. And the work that they have done has been so instrumental that even today, when we are sitting in 2022, we are still talking about it. And it's at the center of what every pharma marketing professional is still doing in their offices in Bombay or in Hyderabad or in Ahmedabad or wherever in India or in Bangladesh. So the primary objective behind initiating this service from Professor Chitta Mitra was to help pharmaceutical companies ethically promote their offerings to doctors. At a time, imagine in 1970s, when the D of data was still not known, because technology is not what it is in 2022. It was not the same in the 1970s. So I think to think about utilizing data, capturing data manually at that time to improve patient healthcare outcomes eventually. And I think that's the entire focus behind any stakeholder in healthcare, to improve patient healthcare outcomes. Everything else is a process which eventually helps improve patient healthcare outcomes. And what he did back then in 1970s is still being utilized today as a critical tool by the pharma industry and pharma marketeers, especially in terms of how they can improve their scientific offering to doctors and make it more patient-centric. The service was initially conceptualized and initiated by him in 1977. And at that time, he was still a professor of marketing at IIM Calcutta. And he worked also in multiple reputed companies such as JWT, the advertising company, HTA, Hindustan Thompson Associates. And he was also credited for starting IMRB, the first independent market research organization in India focusing on consumer behavior research. So given his prior commitments, about 6 years was the gestation period until 1983, when this became a full-fledged company and organization that he started, and that is well documented and well known by everyone. So just generally, when I introduce myself, I speak about my background, but I think given this day and given the emotion of this day, I'd also like to say that he may be the father of pharma brand marketing, but he's also my direct grandfather. And I've been influenced and inspired in my life by him. What I am today is certainly because of him and my parents. So this topic, we are talking about a patient-centric approach. So without looking at anything, I think it's very clear to know that patient-centric, simply without looking anywhere, looking at any article, patient-centric clearly means keeping the patient in focus. So an approach which basically keeps the patient in focus is known widely as a patient-centric approach. As I've mentioned, keeping the patient as the focus by trying to understand their needs better and facilitate a smoother healthcare journey for the patient is a patient-centric approach. How do we understand their needs? One is if the patient tells me, one is by observing the patient. And in today's world, there are multiple ways to do that. If the patient articulates it through a survey, through an interaction in the doctor's clinic, through a private fixed group discussion, that is one way of understanding the patient's need. The other is if the patient is unarticulated, it's a latent need, which we can also observe today by analyzing patient searches or queries on Google. Looking at that kind of data, and Google Analytics will also tell us what is that latent need patients have in today's day and age. There are multiple such examples and processes to identify patient need and facilitate a smoother healthcare journey for the patient. This has been the endeavor throughout, but the ways and processes to identify the patient need have improved, increased due to technology, due to the advent of technology. And that's why today every single healthcare company, be it pharma, be it a health tech startup, at their end game, whatever they might be doing today, is all geared towards improving the health outcome of a patient. And that's why it's a patient-centric approach. Someone might be delivering medicines today through an online app. Someone might be doing diagnostic tests, but everyone is still involved in improving patient healthcare outcomes. However, being a stakeholder in this very sensitive, very important, very critical field from the respect of a patient, compliance comes into picture. And from a pharma marketeer perspective, it's important, yes, as a important member of the healthcare ecosystem, a pharmaceutical company has an important role to play here, but it's also important to be cognizant of compliance, because what a doctor can tell a patient, only a doctor can tell a patient. There's a qualification, there's a certain process involved there for a person to go through to achieve that kind of domain knowledge, to be able to tell the patient, you have this medicine for these days at this time, etc., etc. For someone else to do that directly is not deemed compliant, and that is the underlying caveat, I think, or the underlying risk everyone faces in trying to be patient-centric without being compliant to the rules and regulations. So how has pharma now, having understood what is patient centricity and how the ecosystem is evolving now, how has pharma been patient-centric? Before we go into how pharma has been patient-centric, let's look at the funnel, the patient funnel, which most of us would be aware of, but since most of us are students, I think I would like to revise it once with all of you. Awareness. So the first part of the patient funnel starts with awareness, where patients become aware of different disease conditions. Prevalence. Post-awareness, patients undergo screening health checkups. So I become aware of a certain disease through advertisements, through social media, marketing. And then I realize, okay, if these type of symptoms or these type of conditions appear, should go for a test. I should go for a test. And that's how a patient from awareness moves into prevalence, because prevalence is after doing the test, patients are detected. They see that, okay, the test results are not very encouraging. There might be chances that I have the disease. And a subset of the larger patients move into prevalence. And then comes the time to go to doctors, where the diagnosis and treatment happens. Where, as I said, qualified physicians diagnose and treat the patients based on the test results, based on the screening of an HbA1c, of a glucose test. A doctor might say that you have been diagnosed with diabetes, and then it becomes a chronic life disease. Once you're diagnosed with chronic diseases, they never go away, right? So then the aspect of compliance comes, where a patient needs to adhere to the physician's treatment. And this is, as you can see, the entire funnel is narrowing down, because at every stage, there's a dropout. And I think we can all easily relate, where we see our family members sometimes missing medicines despite having certain chronic diseases, which they are supposed to take the medicines every single day. And that is the compliance part, where human tendency is to forget. If there is no fire on an everyday basis, I will not try to extinguish the fire. So no one is really thinking long term about the repercussions that happen to their health by skipping a medicine today. And that discipline is inherent problem in every single human being. It's human nature. And that is why compliance is also a problem. So if you look at this entire funnel, it just keeps on narrowing down because there's a drop at every single stage. And the challenge is to increase the funnel size and make, by starting at making more and more people aware of different diseases and conditions and so on. And this entire journey that a patient needs to take, imagine diabetes, from becoming aware of such a disease in rural India. Maybe all of us in Dhaka, in Chittagong, in Calcutta, in Bombay are aware of diabetes, but in rural India, in the interiors, in Bangladesh, people will not be aware of diabetes. So making them aware, increasing the size of the funnel and making them go through the entire journey of screening, diagnosis, treatment, compliance, and being compliant is very important to improve their healthcare outcomes. And it has been seen, if a patient is compliant and this entire journey of a diabetic patient is facilitated well, the patient's chances of living longer and living a healthier life increases drastically. So the value that you attach to life is immeasurable. So from a pharma perspective, keeping this patient funnel in mind, that's where everyone in the healthcare ecosystem is really focusing on, to add value in some part of this process. E-pharmacy will come in compliance. Diagnosis and treatment in the doctor's clinic, multiple activities happen. So in different parts of the funnel, across the funnel, various integrated or horizontal approaches are taking place. And from a pharma perspective, how do we keep this patient-centric approach? And as a trusted stakeholder in the healthcare ecosystem, the pharma company behind a product or a brand can add further value to the patients, definitely by smoothing their healthcare journey from awareness, prevalence to compliance. Not only just giving a pill. So pill plus solutions is the language that is being used. Patient centricity is the language that is being used very commonly. And that involves facilitating the entire patient's journey. Keeping this background in mind, what are the various opportunities and some examples across each stage? So in awareness, it is important that patients receive reliable information. People receive reliable information to consume, understand, and act. Not patients yet, people, sorry. And there are various means to do it. Advertisements on TV, leaflets in interior places, social media marketing, and so on. Because it's seen that 80% people today research about their healthcare before embarking on the journey. So they use Google. So and Google has many conflicting articles on the same topic. So a person can get very confused. So how, as a pharma company or as a pharma marketer in a disease indication therapy area I'm operating in with my brands, how do I create a portal of reliability and solid information related to my disease area? So all patients who have, say, a thyroid problem, they come to my portal only. Then comes the next part of the funnel, where how do I create community camps that conduct and facilitate screening and detection for patients? Also home kits, wearables, like your watches, smartwatches, or your fitness watches, These all help in understanding, tracking vitals, and coming up with screening and health conditions subsequently. So how can I create such initiatives as a pharma marketeer for my disease area, which surrounds my brand, is also an option, an opportunity. Then comes where the pharma company is already very strong at, in diagnosis and treatment, where addressing the right physician needs at the right time with appropriate products. So how does a doctor get the right product to offer to their patients? All doctors, let us assume, are rational human beings. It's a very fair assumption to make. And doctors will, as a rational human being, and then being a doctor, the doctor's duty means to keep patient first. The doctor's work involves keeping the patient-centric, keeping a patient-centric approach, because the doctor wants the patient's health to improve. And that's what the doctor is doing. So how do I keep that in mind as a pharma marketer and give the doctor the right tools, the right pills, the right solutions, basically, to help the patient at the right time? And then once the patient leaves the clinic, the challenge comes with respect to compliance. And compliance rates are very poor across life-threatening diseases. And how, as a pharma company, can I help patients becoming more compliant through reminders, home delivery of medicines? If I see in my specific therapy area that the patient is going to the hospital very often, how do I keep a taxi service? So there are various opportunities as a pharma marketer across these stages of the funnel. And there are various companies taking various initiatives in therapy areas, creating for underlying big brands. Some examples you would know are like Abbott's Theranom, what Cipla has done in inhalation therapy. And connecting this patient-centric approach of a pharma marketer with prescription data, given that's the topic I will be speaking about today. And how does the prescription data analysis help a pharma marketer or equip a pharma marketer in facilitating this patient centricity? So a prescription reflects the mind of a physician, and a prescription analysis then means helps in understanding the aspiration of a doctor towards improving the well-being of his or her patient. As we assumed, every human being is a rational person, and this is the truth. Broad majority of doctors want to help their patients improve the healthcare outcomes. If the doctor is patient-centric, the prescription will obviously reflect the doctor's aspiration towards improving the healthcare outcome of the patient. And accordingly, this analysis helps the pharma marketing professional curate relevant therapy management solutions to the doctor that are patient-centric. And how do we come in? What do we do? I think Gauri's introduction about me suggested that I'm from SMSRC, Medical in Medicine, where we are leaders in addressing clinical intelligence needs of the healthcare industry, leveraging on prescription data, which Professor Chitta Mitra started. We have been advocating the same application of that in various other ways, led by Dr. Sanjay Mitra, Dr. Manjuri Mitra. And so there are three companies. SMSRC basically does prescription data-based market research and consulting for the pharma industry in India and Bangladesh. Medclin is a CRO, a clinical research organization, and MedSign provides integrated patient management software that improves access to health records and enhances the continuity of care, the compliance part of it. And a brief background is that we have been in this space of utilizing prescription data and interpreting it, not only capturing it, modeling it, or even inciting that entire value chain of prescription data analytics. We have been present for 35 years, and that has given us a good amount of trust and respect from the industry. Inherent to our service is also excellence, customer excellence, and integrity. Expertise in the application has been our domain and been our strength, and also backed by technology-based pioneering systems and processes across 1970s. Every innovation cycle of 7 years, we have been focused on making new technological changes in our systems to improve the quality of the service. And given this experience, given where I come from, being involved in strategy and operations of the entire group, and specifically operations of SMSRC, I'd like to highlight some examples of how the service of prescription data across these three companies, which are three perspectives. One is real world evidence for application in marketing and sales strategy. One is application of real world evidence for clinical research, that is MedClean, and one is application of real world evidence for the doctor and patient through a software, through an application. How does these three help in a patient-centric approach, which can be leveraged by the pharma marketer, is what I'll highlight on. SMSRC, as most of us would know, is a systematic, unbiased, periodical feedback that is continuously provided to the pharma industry, where we are collecting prescription data from a large sample of 10,000 doctors in India and 400 doctors in Bangladesh. It's a stratified sample across regions, across doctor segments. And this is basically a qualitative feedback. A prescription is a qualitative feedback, which becomes a which comes from a quantitative prescription data analysis. So the insighting is the qualitative part, the prescription data is the quantitative part that comes to the pharma marketeers in India and Bangladesh. And that provides actionable insights from strategic prescription research. And pharma marketeers today are using it for making better business plans, brand level strategy, product portfolio level strategy, company level strategy, M&A, and various sales, division-wise sales strategies also are formulated based on what the doctor wants and needs. And a case study or an example from HMSRC in respect to the application of prescription research in providing a patient-centric solution for COPD asthma management. As I mentioned, Cipla has been a pioneer in this space. How would a typical Cipla marketeer go about utilizing prescription data analytics? I'll explain that. I think there will be multiple talks on how Cipla has actually done that, but I'll explain the process a bit and how prescription data connects. Is first would be an RX analysis is first done by the marketeers to understand which segment of doctors prescribe what dosage duration of product or brand to what patient segment for what indication. It helps. It is a starting point. The prescription data becomes a starting point of understanding what is happening in the doctor's clinic, what type of doctors are thinking of what type of segments of patients, male, female, age, demographics of the patient, which type of area, what are the indications or symptoms that are coming on the prescription, cough, breathlessness, when is the doctor diagnosing asthma, what is the preclude before that. This helps create a baseline because this input is coming from a qualified medical professional who is best equipped to be patient-centric, because that person is qualified. This becomes a baseline for any pharma marketeer to understand where to start and research further. And from a Cipla perspective, this would help them understand, okay, chest physicians are helping diagnosing such patients in such age ranges when they have such indications and giving them these medicines. And these patients are coming back regularly. Are these medicines helping enough? And that is where the innovation happens in the pharma marketing and the pharma company, where they keep on innovating on the technology of the offering that they can give to the doctor so that the doctor can provide something better. They will see that, okay, this patient, for example, is coming back regularly. How do I give a solution which is easy for the patient to intake versus something which is very complex? And to make it convenient for the patient. If I have a lifelong lifestyle disease, I would want to intake or input a medicine which is easy, not something which is cumbersome. And I like pricking. I don't like pricking. Anyone would not like pricking. So how can I make it convenient through just a Velcro patch, for example? And in this case study, what we all know, you can see over here, this is just one analytical highlight that we have shown here of the IPM, the Indian pharma market, and Cipla, how prescription distribution of the inhalation market between DPI and metered dose inhalers has evolved amongst chest physicians. And briefly, I'll just mention that, and we have shown over here in the IPM, basically, initially it was DPI more, and then both DPI has also maintained, but MDI has increased its share, and Cipla has followed that kind of DPI, MDI share evolution also since 2016 to 22. We are just looking at 5 years, but if I take you back about 30 years when, or 25 to 30 years when Cipla started, they innovated by understanding what is happening in the market. They realized there is no solution, real solution uh, to help COPD asthma patients, and they came up with inhalers. The entire concept of inhalers, the commitment to patients, the excellence that Cipla showed to patients was unparalleled. And they removed asthma management using inhalers as a taboo. And the way they did that was through various patient-centric approaches. There was no technology back then, but just by speaking to the patient, you cannot be more patient-centric. Technology helps facilitate and make that process easier, but they put people who will speak to patients in clinics, explain to doctors, teach patients how to use inhalers, and they remove the taboo of using a DPI. So DPI is basically a powdered inhaler. And so that's how DPI came into first line treatment for asthma management patients. And as you can see over here, MDI has taken up more of that share, which is a lighter blue line in the IPM and dominated by Cipla. So both show the same trend. MDI is the dry powder created some itchiness or roughness in the throat. So they tried to make it more convenient, and that is where the metered dose inhalers came into picture. And why did DPI to MDI shift even happen? Because they kept on researching, innovating based on the baseline understanding of what is happening in the clinics today, in the patients today with COPD and asthma, and tried to make their product and offering to the doctors more and more patient-centric and convenient for the patient. The MDIs, every patient who has used both the DPI and MDI would say MDI is more convenient. And yes, if I have to take a medicine every single day of my life, I would want to take something which is convenient. Then automatically I become more compliant and I improve my healthcare outcome. Keeping that in mind, as an application of prescription research, if we look at MedClin, which is clinical research.
Aneesh, sorry for interrupting in between. We are over the time. Please take the last 2 minutes to complete this.
Sure. So if I look at MedClin, in terms of MedClin, patient-reported outcomes is beyond prescription data. Patient-reported outcomes is another application of using patient intelligence to help in facilitating a patient-centric approach from a pharma marketer perspective. So this is a group of patients suffering from throat pain, infection, fever, cough. There's a randomized manner of putting them into 3 groups, and the doctor prescribes them A, B, C for the management of pharyngitis and gives them 3 antibiotics, A, B, and C. The patients are then given a questionnaire to fill up. So prescription data is captured from these 3 groups, but a patient is given a prescription questionnaire to fill up a subjective and objective feeling and experience of how they feel after taking the antibiotic. Both prescription and this PROC data, the questionnaire data, is then analyzed and helps the pharma company come up with a solution which is, again, patient-centric, which they can offer to the doctor. And my last example and last slide is on how patient management software and tech tools provide multiple new touch points to leverage upon in becoming more patient-centric. And in the case of MedSign, we are providing doctors, for example, with videos and pictures to explain and counsel to their patients so that the patients understand how to manage the disease better. So it's actually going as an attachment in the prescription. Patients are getting reminders for their prescriptions, for their medicines, automated reminders for follow-up visits to become more compliant. And that is how the power of technology also helps facilitate a patient-centric approach to the doctor. And this provides also multiple opportunities for the pharma companies to seek such tie-ups or such partnerships with health tech companies who are being patient-centric. Having said that, I think I'm done with my discussion. I hope it was helpful.
Wow, wonderful, Aneesh. Thank you for showing us all the parts of it, the capturing the prescriber's perspective, capturing a patient's perspective, and capturing the IT part also. That was really, really good. And thank you for being here and giving the insights to the participants today. Thank you so much, Aneesh. Yeah, over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you.
Shankar sir, you would like to interact?
I just want to add, since Aneesh mentioned about the prescription research and many are participating here are students. Okay, be it Professor Mitra or the organization that are doing prescription research, one aspect that they always insist, and I have found in my brand management days, very, very useful insight is, do not use the technical language which doctors study in their curriculum, but use the patient language. I think it was, means I'm talking about 25 years ago, this patient centricity, Professor Mitra or Sanjay Mitra used to talk about. An example is, instead of using the term pruritus, use the term itching. So this is what they used to advocate while printing communication material. I think this is this type of insights is what is going to help for a pharma marketer to go closer to the patient. Instead of sticking to the medical literature or terminologies, how do you speak the patient language, which the doctor, patient after patient, is listening, as well as he will be using the same language. So that synchronization of what patient speaks, use the same language, is one of the important contribution which has come from Professor Mitra. This is the point I wanted to make.